good morning, everyone. This is Gurula, and we are looking at the market. Today is Tuesday, April 26th. Lots of activity. We've got earnings and a host of other things going on. And David and I was just talking about what the market might do today overall. And just before we start, remember that past performance is no indication of future results, no guarantee of future results. So David, you were saying that the put call ratio is relatively high. And generally speaking, that indicates that the market should move to the upside today. Is that correct?
Yeah, the put call
Generally.
Put call ratio, anytime it's over 2, that means historically speaking, that means there's too many sellers compared to buyers. So most the sellers have to cover, which would meaning drive the market up.
All right, so when we take that and then take a look at the VIX, the question is what happens on market open, because the market could open and decline and then reverse and move to the upside. So and that would be, I'm assuming, a lot of those sellers trying to unwind their positions when they see the market turn. But looking at the VIX here, so this is the 4-hour chart, and this candle started forming at 9 o'clock a.m. It's sitting on top of the 5-day EMA. We used this trailing stop yesterday as a means of resistance. And when we look at a daily chart, we can see that it held. So the VIX climbed, it hits this trailing stop. It did move above, but ultimately it failed to break this resistance, and then it declined. And as the VIX declined, the market recovered. So it was a nice recovery yesterday. And the very same thing could happen today. It looks like the VIX is going to start and it's going to climb, and then it could very easily hit this trailing stop resistance at 29.53 and then decline again. I'm a bit concerned about one. I've got this 5-day EMA support level here. We've got this algorithmic support level here, and we've got this 20-day moving up. I believe the market overall is going to continue to the downside, but we could see a nice bounce to the upside today, and today could be the last day for a while. So I'm very interested to see how that put call ratio plays out. And for myself today, I've identified a couple of stocks. One, Arthur Daniels Midland, ADM, had earnings on yesterday, and it's going to gap open. So the 5-day EMA is at 93.66. Current price is 95.50. So it is already in the pre-market all the way up here. So it's going to gap open. There's this trend line here that could provide some resistance, but we're looking for it to actually break through, get back in this trend, inside of this trend line to the upside, and then continue moving up. I like AbbVie as well. It has a nice dividend. It's a defensive stock. It's healthcare, and it had been moving quite a bit to the upside. If you look at the chart here on the 1 year, it made a nice strong move to the upside, and this is really the first time it's given buyers a real opportunity to buy the dip. Small dip here, but this one's pretty significant, and it's holding on the 50-day EMA. So the market's going to open soon. A couple of things I'm looking at to the downside today, and I think it's important to point these out. So this is charge point, and what I'm looking at, for example, on charge point, is I'm looking for it to hit this 5-day EMA and decline. CrowdStrike, same thing. I sold out of my puts yesterday, but I'm looking for CrowdStrike to hit this 5-day EMA and decline, because this is pretty significant resistance. And same thing for Global Foundries hit this 5-day EMA and then decline. So let's get into our 5-minute chart, and we're just going to take a look and start marking some of our support and resistance here. So CrowdStrike, and again, we talked about Arthur Daniels Midland, and I'm going to jump on Arthur Daniels Midland on the open. Based on earnings, I don't buy before earnings. I think this is a good one to consider today to the upside, given what David saw, particularly on the put call ratio. And let's see what we have here. So looking at the $98 call, maybe. Let's take a look and see what the open interest is. And there's not a lot of open interest anywhere. We don't want to go all the way down here, but ADM has a pretty wide spread. So I'm looking at the $98 call, and the spread is really wide. I like to get it at a price that's decent. Don't know if I will. Actually, I did. I paid 88 cents for it. So I'm buying because of the earnings. The earnings were incredible. And looking at the daily chart yesterday, this is what we saw. It hit this ATR trailing stop. So now it's above the 5-day EMA. I'm expecting ADM based on earnings today, in particular, based on what David said as well, and what I saw in my chart about the put call ratio. I'm expecting it to climb. I'm expecting it to get back inside this trend line. Now, this could be resistance. We'll just have to wait and see. So we look at the VIX. The VIX is climbing. It could quickly hit this ATR trailing stop. So I'm expecting that the market right now overall is showing weakness. I do like AbbVie. I think this is really going to be a nice move here, and it has a lot of room up to 172.19. So this is one that I would take long. Now, they do have earnings coming up on the 29th, so that's a bit of a challenge because you never know what's going to happen with earnings. And you're probably paying a little bit more in premium now because of the implied volatility. So let's just, again, go to the 5-minute and start marking some of these so that we can make some calls and determinations. So I'm going to mark the bottom. Here's the opening low, ADM. Mark this as opening low, and it's giving back, but I'm not too concerned about that. That's some profit taking. Charge point. I had a message to buy puts around 1506. And I'm not going to wait, actually. So looking at charge point, looks like the $14 puts. That's where all the action is. And I'm just going to take a look at those. And this is my hedge. All right, so I'm in puts and calls. All right, so let's just mark this upside here. This is charge point. CrowdStrike. I sold out of my CrowdStrike yesterday. I still think this is going to move to the downside considerably. Global Foundries. And when I show here buy puts at or below, and the price here you're seeing 52.36, that's where the 5-day EMA is on the daily chart. Because I find that that is typically very strong support and resistance. If you don't see buy puts, then I'm looking at upside trades or calls on other things. So Nucor had really great earnings. They fell considerably. It's sitting right on this channel right here. So I'm expecting Nucor to move to the upside today. And I expect it to continue moving to the upside. Nucor is NUE. And let's take a look at SPY. And I'm not sure why it's showing me all of this aftermarket, but looks like the SPY is trying to make a turn here. Upstart. I like puts on Upstart. And this uranium stock, so looking at this one, it bounced off of the 200-day moving average, EMA, yesterday, exponential moving average. So I'm expecting it to climb today. It does have resistance at 24.79, but it only has an ATR of $1.14, so it could very easily move to that target today and mark the high. Let's take a look at the VIX. So the VIX is still climbing. And again, we are expecting the VIX to hit this target of 29.53 and then to get rejected there. That's what we think will happen. So we'll just have to keep an eye and see if in fact that does play out. Now it can actually climb above this before it starts to decline. We saw that yesterday and looking at a daily. So just because it climbs above doesn't mean it's not going to get rejected. This resistance still held because it closed below. This is a daily chart where the ATR trailing stop is showing. So marking the VIX. ExxonMobil, I liked the way it looked on the chart. You have this doji here that's on the 50-day EMA. It's bouncing off of the 50. It's threatened by this 5-day EMA at 84.41. They have earnings coming up as well. Zoom, I'm looking at buying puts on Zoom. So let's go back through our list. AbbVie, I think, is the pick of the day to the upside. And I do like the way it looks on the daily chart. Once it gets above the 5-day EMA, which is currently at 157.17, then I think it has a green light all the way up to this 172. All right, so my ADM trade is not working, but I'm going to stay in this for a bit because I think that it's going to reverse. I'm looking for some support, and I see support on the 5-day EMA. Ideally, I would have waited until it closed or found support here, but that's okay. So again, the 5-day EMA, I believe, is very strong support. So that's at 93.72. Current price is 93.74. But I'm expecting that 5-day EMA to hold. Charge point looks like it may have an opening low here. All right, GFS. I'm going to move this up. All right, so we know that the ATR trailing stop on the 5 is 52.95, at least it was. So we're still below that. We've got this ATR trailing stop on the 5-day. I'm sorry, the 5-minute. The 5-minute exponential moving average on the daily is at 52.36. So we've got this ATR trailing stop here on the 5-minute as additional resistance. So looking at a daily chart for GFS, now the 5-day EMA is at 52.47, so it has moved down because of weakness. So let me change that. 52.47. We'll keep our eye on that. Merck Healthcare, I fully am bullish on Merck, and Merck has broken out of, or is breaking out of a big W. So if I'll show you my yearly chart, this is what I have for Merck, which is a big W. We talked about it a couple of days ago. And I have this descending triangle. So what I'm looking for is for Merck to break out to the upside. Then that would signal to me a strong upside move. And the previous high is 91.40. So we would target that, looking at, of course, 88.08 as resistance and 89.85 as resistance, up to 91.40 as our target. On a weekly basis, Merck moves $3.52. So the ATR is not very high. So we're talking 352. It could be at $90 by next week. And we have a target of 91.40. So you'd have to be a little patient with this one. But Merck is a good solid trade, I believe. MRO, I think the oil and gas are a little bit weak. I've just been trying to figure out what's happening with them. But we've got MRO, which is another one of my favorites. If we look at it on a daily chart, it does have support here, again, at the 50-day and on this, inside this channel. And you've got the ATR trailing stop. So this would be a good consideration to the upside. But finding the right entry is going to be key. Let's go back to the VIX and see what's happening. The VIX is still, again, making a strong move to the upside. We're getting pretty close to this resistance. So we see this is a 30-minute chart. So in addition to having an ATR trailing stop here on the daily, we also have it here on the 30-minute. So this looks like it's going to be really strong resistance for the VIX. So expecting the VIX to hit this area and then to decline. AbbVie still, again, strong move. So AbbVie on the ATR trailing stop, well, not on the ATR trailing stop, but on the ATR, that's a $5.18 ATR. That's how much it moves on a daily basis on average. So it had a low of 156.11. So if we take 156.11 and add 518, our daily target for AbbVie would be 161.29. And let's see, the 20-day EMA is at 159. I think this would be a reasonable target because we're going to be above that. And AbbVie is a strong candidate for today and for the next few days, quite frankly. It's just an opportunity that hasn't been present previously. All right, ADM is continuing to show weakness. It may be finding support here on the 50-day EMA. Charge point, we have a doji. So we do have our opening high and opening low. And we're going to watch this because this may give us an opportunity to buy again or add to our position on charge point. CrowdStrike, we have an opening low. Also opening low on GPS. So here's where we would consider a put on global foundries. We think chip stocks are going to be weak for a while. The 5-day EMA is 52.40. It's almost below that, and we're just simply waiting for it to fall below the 5-day EMA to make sure it holds. Merck Healthcare. I think this is, again, this is a strong candidate to the upside. This pattern, I mean, I just can't overemphasize how significant it is. And when you look at it, it's quite obvious. It's just a big W and a descending triangle, and a breakout from there to either side is significant. MRO gas and oil, we have not established an opening low yet, but looks like we're getting some support here on this trend line that we drew. So this might be signal an entry point for MRO to the upside. They do have earnings coming up on the 4th. Nucor. So what we have on Nucor right here is a hammer. So that would signal a reversal because Nucor has been moving down from a high of 187. It's currently at 156. We see the spinning top here, which indicates indecision, but we had this support level on the 20-day and inside this channel. So now we see this candle on the 5-minute, this hammer. So that would signal an opportunity for Nucor to the upside. And looking at Nucor, there's not a lot of open interest, so I'm not really sure if that would be one that I would consider trading. But it does give us an opportunity. If you are wanting to buy into Nucor, this would be the place to do it. All right, so the SPY, we're just now getting an opening low, and we don't have any certainty yet. This is Upstart. This is uranium. So uranium, you have this hammer, spinning top, hammer forming. It looks like we may have a bottom here. And this could now begin a move to the upside. So we should see, okay, so here we go. We've got some weakness in the VIX. All right, so we have weakness in the VIX. So again, this ATR trailing stop resistance is in play, and it doesn't have to hit it. It can just be present. And if we look at the 30-minute chart, we see this is really strong resistance because it's not only on the daily chart, which we marked, but also on the 30-minute chart. So now we're looking for where the VIX might find some support. And we're probably going to say somewhere around 2618 is where the VIX could find support. So we want to keep an eye on that. ExxonMobil, again, I just think gas and oil, for some reason, is showing considerable weakness. Zoom would have been a nice trade to the downside. And just showing you on my charts, I had marked Zoom as a downside move, puts at or below 103.37. So it opened and hit a high of 101.68. And when it started to move down, that would have been the time to take that entry. And again, the reason for that is it's getting rejected by the 5-day EMA here. So yesterday it climbed, it hit the 5-day, and this morning I was expecting it to open and decline based on that rejection. Same thing with CrowdStrike. All right, so let's go back to our 5-minute. All right, so here we have an opportunity for an entry to AbbVie. It has taken a bit of a pause. It's established the opening high, it looks like, and it's finding support here on the 5-day EMA. So if one was looking for an entry, this could be it. To be conservative, you would wait until it breaks through the opening high. Unless this candle continues to climb above the opening high, then we have not established an opening high yet. All right, ADM. Like I found the bottom finally. And let's look at the, all right, so it looks like that 5-day EMA is holding on ADM. And I'm confident in this trade. So I'm just going to add to my position. Charge point getting rejected here on this ATR trailing stop. I'm still expecting charge point to fall regardless of what the market does. I expect it to hit this 5-day and to get rejected. So even if the market moves up, I'm going to stay in my charge point puts. And looks like the VIX is hitting resistance because we had a shooting star that was forming. Now it's a doji, but we can see that resistance is currently playing out in the VIX. So let's look at the SPY. We haven't taken a look at that for a while. So the SPY still has not made its opening low, but it's looks like it's about to reverse. So what I'm seeing on SPY is I see a doji spinning top. So the SPY is declining, but it is giving a signal that it is going to reverse. And the question is when. So we just have to keep an eye on it. And let's look for some support for SPY. So there's nothing apparent on the 30-minute chart until 420. All right, so on the 1 hour, what we see is an ATR trailing stop at 423.34. So let's mark that on our charts. 423.34. ATR trailing stop, 1 hour. I'm going to make it blue because that's the same color and we can recognize what it is. All right, so now we'll be able to see this on all time frames. Let's look at the 4 hour and see if there's anything there. All right, so nothing on the 4 hour. So going back to the 5-minute. So now we see this is where the support is for SPY. Here, this ATR trailing stop. So it still has not made an opening low as of yet. Still declining. That's okay, we'll just keep our eye on it. All right, so Upstart has made an opening low. URA, Global Uranium ETF, It's signaling a reversal. And if we look at it on a daily chart, it's bouncing off the 200-day EMA with resistance at 24.80. It only moves $1.15. Currently has a low of 23.64. So $25 looks like maybe it's moved today. So it could easily hit $25, hit this 5-day EMA, and then of course close below it and still give us a nice gain. Like the VIX is still climbing and getting very close here to this resistance level. This is a key level here that we're watching. And when the VIX gets here and signals that it is going to get rejected by this resistance, that would be the time to look at SPY to the upside, or even Apple, because both of those, Apple and SPY, tend to be correlated. I'm going to put Apple on the screen here. All right, so I'm going to mark this opening high for Apple, and let's say this is the opening low. We don't have any assurance of that yet, but let's look at Apple on a 30-minute chart, and you have the ATR trailing stop. So 155.96, I'm going to mark this as support. 155.96. This is the 30-minute. Mark it as blue so we know what it is. And it doesn't have to hit it, but we know that this is the boundary to the downside for us currently for Apple. All right, AbbVie. Again, we looked at AbbVie and said this would be the entry here because it was going to find support on the 5-day EMA. So we do now have an opening high, an opening low for AbbVie. So entering a trade on AbbVie, this is just my own personal thought and prognosis, is a trade to the upside is good anywhere above the 5-day EMA. So this would be good. If you're conservative and don't want to take any risk, then you look to enter once it crosses above this opening high at 158.56. Once it's above that, then you would set your stop if you're conservative at 158.56, or you could use the 5-day EMA. All right, so ADM is moving sideways. I don't like what I see on the 30-minute chart. This inverted hammer, but this is pre-market, so we're gonna discount that for now. This hammer here signaled yesterday that this would be a buy to the upside. Of course, we had earnings, and I don't particularly like buying before earnings. Charge point, nice move. I missed it, but it has moved to the downside now. I'm just going to add to my position. Okay, so again, 2 trades we made so far. Charge point to the downside and ADM to the upside. So we're still waiting on some gains on this trade. I still think this is a good solid trade. And the reason why is because I like it sitting on top of the 5-day EMA, which is holding. We saw it decline and it hit the 20-day EMA. You see the wick here. If I can zoom in just a little bit. Hit the 20-day EMA, bounced. Looks like it found support on the 5-day. So this is holding. So I'm expecting, based on the earnings, based on how they blew their earnings away, and given what they do, I think it's less impacted by the VIX and some of the other stocks like tech, et cetera. So I'm expecting ADM to continue climbing today. As a matter of fact, I'm going to add another call for ADM. All right, so looking at charge point, that was a really nice trade. CrowdStrike. Again, yesterday I was in puts for CrowdStrike based on the fact that when it hit this 5-day EMA, I bought puts looking at it getting rejected. I don't swing, so I got out of them. It didn't give me what I needed, and today it gapped down, so it would have been nice to hold overnight if you're a swing trader. But of course, it could have easily climbed above this 5-day EMA this morning based on news. So ideally, would have bought on the open because this was the call. And as we see, it's moving down. So this is a head and shoulders pattern, and you can see it clearly on a weekly chart. So looking at the weekly, what you've got the left shoulder here, you've got the head here, and you have the right shoulder forming. So I'm expecting CrowdStrike to come all the way down to 153.58. It's currently at 206. So that's going to be a nice trade to the downside. And let's see what we've got here. Going back to GFS, again, puts out below 52.47. Nice downside trade. Merck presents an opportunity. We have an opening high. So looking at Merck, expecting it to climb. So if we go to a daily chart, for example, we see the 5-day EMA here is support. So this is giving an opportunity for an entry to the upside on Merck, and it could very easily hold here on the 5-day EMA. I like to also buy off the first reversal. So we've got this move up, then a reversal. Look for the stock to find support and then to start moving again. And that's what we have on Merck. So MRO was another I like to the upside. And it looks like we're starting to get that movement now. So looking at the daily, you've got this doji. I was hoping that MRO would gap open to the upside. Then this would become what's called an abandoned baby, where you have a doji either at the top or at the bottom sitting all alone because the stock gaps down and then gaps up, or gaps up and then gaps down. But I didn't get that signal. So I still think, given the fact that we have this support, lots of support, ATR trailing stop, 50-day EMA, trend line, channel, this is going to be a nice entry. Earnings are scheduled for May 4th. I don't have Devon on the list, but I'm going to put Devon on the list here because we had talked about Devon. And Devon is making a nice strong move today. And again, all of the energy stocks had the same pattern, essentially. Now, Devon, this could be, well, no, we've got the gap closed here. Again, it fell to its ATR trailing stop. It's going to try to get back inside this trend line. There is trouble here. So I would probably not be so much in a hurry to jump on this until I see some support at this level. But we've got the 50-day EMA, the 5-day coming down, and it's outside of its channel. I think this is going to be bullish to the upside, but again, I would most likely prefer to wait a little bit. Nucor is performing as expected. And once it broke through here, this is where you will look to make your entry. However, if you missed it, just be patient. It'll come back. It's going to test these areas as support and resistance. And then we will be able to make another decision about whether or not to get in or out. All right, so let's take a look at VIX and see what's happening with the VIX right now. Looking at a 30-minute chart. So we are seeing the results of this resistance. The VIX is showing considerable weakness. And if we go to a 5-minute chart, the VIX is falling below or falling through the 5-day EMA. So that means SPY should start to move up. And Apple should start to move up as well. All right, so it looked like Apple got very close to this 8-year trailing stop, 160.01. The 8-year trailing stop is at 159.96. So that held. This is a good level of support. We need Apple above the 5-day EMA. And for the SPY, look at that. So the SPY, the 8-year trailing stops at 423.34. It hit 423.37. A thing of beauty. And now it's above the 5-day EMA. So looking at SPY, $17,000. Open interest is at 7,000 at the 425. The 429. Where do we think SPY is going to go? Let's look at a daily chart. All right, SPY could run to 430, which is where the 5-day EMA is. 430. So if we were to take a trade on SPY, I would consider the 430. And the question is when. Now, based on what David saw with the put call ratio, this is where I think a SPY trade works. So I'm going to get into a SPY call that expires tomorrow. And I'm just going to let that ride because I think that based on what we're seeing here, and based on what David saw this morning, looking at the VIX in particular, this ATR trailing stop here, and looking at what we see on the 5-minute, this weakness falling through the 5-day. Looking at what we see on the 30-minute chart, the 8-year trailing stop here, the VIX might be done. Recognizing, based on, again, what David said about the put-call ratio, that it signaled an indication that the market was going to be bullish. The question is, when do you buy, knowing that information? You don't want to buy too early, obviously. So again, we see the weakness here. And on the 4-hour, so I'm very comfortable with my SPY call. And just to take another look, it's moving to the upside. Apple needs to get above the 5-day EMA. But I'm confident or comfortable as well that Apple is going to be bullish because it is correlated to the SPY. And I like SPY because it is already above the 5-day EMA and it has support. So David, any questions, or anyone who's on with us, any questions so far about what we've talked about?
I do not, Richard. Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, that's good. Thank you.
All right, so here's AbbVie again. Remember we looked at AbbVie here, and this was a great opportunity to buy. And it's, again, continuing its ascent to the upside. So going with the daily chart on AbbVie, this is our first indication here that there's strength in the move. We want to know how it's going to handle this 20-day EMA. If there is strength in the move for AbbVie to the upside, then this 20-day EMA resistance won't be a problem. So that's sitting currently at 160.07. AbbVie moves $5.31 a day. And the low was, again, 156.11. So I'm just going to mark this on the chart. 156.11 plus, and I know I did this earlier, 5.31, 161.42. $161.42. All right, so our target price for AbbVie today is 161.42. And given that this is at 160.03, what we could see, and it would be perfectly fine, is AbbVie could climb above this 20-day EMA, hit or get close to this target. We could be conservative and set our price at 161, and then decline and fall just below this 20-day EMA, which would be okay. So if we're looking at 161.42, and if you were already in this price, and I'm looking at an alert here on my screen, and it looks like my ADM is showing some considerable weakness. So what's happening is the VIX doing something crazy. Okay, we've got a spike in the VIX. So I'm not too concerned about that. Check on my charge point. So I'm still good on charge point. But going back to AbbVie, if you're trading this and if you have a day, if you're an intraday trader and you're looking to figure out what should be your target if you're trading options, then you take the current price of the stock and the target price and determine the difference. And then you multiply that by the delta of the option you are holding. And then that will give you the actual target price for your option. So for example, if the difference in price of your target here is $1, and if the delta for the option that you're holding is 50, then if you paid $1.50 for your option, your call option, then your sale price would be $2. So it's just a simple math calculation.
One more time, Richard.
Yeah, so if in fact, say for example, you bought, wow, Apple has fallen through. So looks like VIX is going to test that support level. So if you bought a call option or a put option, doesn't really matter. There's a delta associated with that option, that strike price. That delta simply says for every dollar that the stock moves, the option will move this amount. So if your delta is 50, for every $1 that the stock price moves, the delta or your option price should move 50 cents. Does that make sense?
Yes, I was, for the calculation though, you said it was the price of the stock,
You
the
take, yeah,
difference.
you take your current, you take the target price that you've set for the stock, and then you subtract that by the current stock price. That will give you a number. And then you will multiply that times the delta to figure out what your gain should be in your option.
Got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh. So looks like the VIX is going to hit this. The SPY is taking a fall through the 8-year trailing stop. So we're just a bit early. Apple has fallen through the 8-year trailing stop. So this is on a 30-minute chart. So we still have 15 minutes to go before the 30-minute candle closes. And that's significant because this 8-year trailing stop could still hold. Apple just needs to close above it on this 15-minute candle. So looking at the VIX, for example, on the 30-minute chart, let's take a look and see. It is right here on the 8-year trailing stop. So we're going to just watch the VIX for just a bit on a 5-minute chart. Let's see how it handles this resistance. Because if you are looking to trade to the upside, ideally, this is where you would begin looking to make your entry if you're not already in particular, if you're trading the SPY or if you're trading Apple. Because we are expecting that the VIX is going to get rejected here. Now, what's really interesting to point out and should be noted is that the VIX hit this resistance yesterday. So the one thing to note about support and resistance is when a stock or when the VIX or candle hits resistance multiple times, then that resistance actually weakens. This is the second time, so we're believing that it's going to hold based on the put call ratio that David saw. And if it does, then we're going to get a decline here. But if it comes back and it hits this trailing stop again a third time, it is likely not to hold. And that means that we could get a strong move by the VIX to the upside, which would be a signal that the market is just going to make its decline for the rest of the week, I would imagine. So I'm going to go to a faster time frame. I'm going to look at a 2-minute chart.
Roger, that put call ratio, that's more long-term than short-term.
Understood.
Okay.
All right, so this VIX, it looked like this market is not going to be moving to the upside, at least not right now. Unless we get some indication about reversal. Now, again, this is on a daily chart, this 8-year trailing stop, and the other one is on a 30-minute chart. So we need the VIX, if this is going to hold, the one on the 30-minute chart, then we have about 11 minutes for the VIX to fall below here. And I'm going to mark this one. This is so no need to fear, because we make decisions based on technicals. So ATR, stop, 30-minute. Going back to the 5-minute chart. So now what's really interesting is we see that the VIX finds support. Well, it almost did on the trailing stop, but that trailing stop is really key. I mean, you can see when this candle opened, it actually had the ATR trailing stop as support versus resistance. But now it looks like that resistance might hold. We're just kind of watching this because we have still 9 minutes just to kind of keep an eye on it. Let's go back and take a look at our other selections here. So Apple never made it above the 5-day EMA. So that was one that we would not have taken an entry on. It's still declining. AbbVie came back and has fallen. So looking at the VIX now on my other screen, the VIX has found support again here, and here it goes to the upside. So yeah, this is not a market at the moment that you want to be in to the upside. And of course, I'm holding ADM calls. And because of the IB, now they are significantly less than what they were when I bought them. But it's falling, so it would be better have been in a put here. Looking at this in the pre-market, this may have been a good signal. So again, this was at 920. So actually, this was not the European markets. This is the U.S. markets, because at 9 o'clock, most, even Robinhood starts to trade from 4 a.m. until 7 a.m. There's very little activity in U.S. markets. The only platform that's trading is Webull at that time. And then from 7 o'clock a.m. until market opens, you have a few others. You have TD Ameritrade, you have others. I think Robinhood is soon to start trading at 7. But Robinhood, I believe, now trades at 9 a.m. is when they first open for trading. Okay,
Richard,
so
that 159 level in Apple is very important. 159.
all right, yeah. So let's take a look and see what's happening at Apple at the 159 level. Okay, so yeah, I see here, I see an ATR, I see the 200-day EMA is at 158.15. Based on this chart here, this would have been the right move to the downside, again, to buy Apple off of the rejection by the 5-day EMA. And looking at Zoom, we could have taken the Zoom trade. We could have taken Upstart. Could have taken CrowdStrike. Could have taken GPS. Just again, looking at the 5-day EMA, it is really strong support and resistance. So looking now, it looks like the VIX could could still, that rejection could still hold. So going back to a 5-minute chart on the VIX, even a 2-minute, we still have 5 minutes before the 30-minute candle closes, and this is a critical support area. So the VIX needs to fall below the 5-day EMA and give us a move to the downside. And that is still quite possible. If it does, then this resistance will hold, and then we should get some kind of turn if we don't see it already in SPY and also with Apple. All right, so we need SPY to get back above the 5-day EMA. So I'm going to add to my chart here. Let's go with, let's do some analysis work and take a look and see what's happening with the breadth of the market. All right, so looking at the market overall, so this is the number of stocks that are above their 100-day moving average simple. When we looked at it last week, we saw that it was climbing. Well, since then, the market overall has been falling. So we see the market breadth. These are all the stocks in the S&P 500. So here last week, we had 58% was the high of all of the stocks in the S&P 500 were above their 100-day moving average. Now that number is 39%. And with respect to the 200-day moving average, we had 54% were above, that number is 42%. So we can see which direction the market is moving. I don't think there's any question about it in our minds previously. So we can see that here. And for the number of stocks that are above on their 50-day simple, it was 71% last week. That number is 38%. That's a huge decline. So this confirms, obviously, that we're in a bear market. I don't think there's any dispute about that. And we just kind of have to trade in that direction. So going back to the list, looking at Apple. So we're going to use the volume point of control. We see here that Apple has fallen completely out of the value area, which is up here. So this is clearly bearish. AbbVie is still in the value area, finding support here. The point of control is at 158.12. ADM has fallen out of the value area. That was a terrible trade to the upside. ChargePoint seems to have some support here. We need ChargePoint to fall out of the value area. But ChargePoint's one that will probably swing. And let's see what else. And SPY has fallen out of the value area. So we're really close now. We have less than a minute. And if we look at the VIX, so that ATR trailing stop on the 30-minute chart for the VIX is going to be broken. Don't really see it falling that quickly, but even though it may break this 30-minute ATR trailing stop, that doesn't mean that the resistance did not hold because it could still decline and fall below it. We won't see it on our screen anymore because it will move from the top to the bottom. And let's just go and take a look at what that looks like when it happens. So going back to SPY and going to a 30-minute chart for SPY for today. I want to zoom in actually for VIX is what we're talking about. So interesting. So we had this ATR trailing stop for the VIX that was here. And when it got broken on the 30-minute chart, then it moved here as support. Now, the significance of that is this is the range that the VIX has been trading in over on the 30-minute chart over the past 13 periods, because what we're using for the ATR trailing stop is a 13 candle period. So for the past 13 candles with a factor of 4. Now I do have the overnight on, so that is a factor. If the overnight was not on, if it was just the daily, then this ATR trailing stop could be at a different location, but I do have the overnight on. So this is the average price over the past 13 periods. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to about here. So this has been the range. So that's what the ATR trailing stop does, and it gives you the same thing on the daily, which we see here. And when this gets broken on the daily, then it will move down to the bottom and become blue dots like this. It will not necessarily be in the same location. It could be up here. It all depends on where the VIX has been trading over the past 13 candles. All right, so it's 10:32, and we've had a very busy morning. And David, that 159 level does appear to be key. We've got some indication here on Apple that it is going to reverse. We've got spinning top here, spinning top, spinning top, spinning top forming. And we do have on the SPY an attempt here at a reversal. And on the VIX, it has fallen below the daily ATR trailing stop. And it found support here on the 30-minute and the 5-day EMA. So we'll just keep an eye on that. But hopefully this is information you can use throughout your trading day to make some decisions, because it looks like the market is still weak. And the next level of resistance for VIX is going to be on the 1-hour chart. There's an ATR trailing stop at 30.65.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Great job, man.
All right, so we'll just keep an eye on this, because this is, I think the put call ratio is going to be a factor, because what's going to happen is once these positions to the downside start to unwind, people are going to want to get out of them.
Right.
But I think that the market is quite weak. So we'll just have to see what the VIX does today. If this is an inside candle today, then tomorrow will tell us truly about direction. All right, well, I wish you guys happy trading, and It looks like it's going to be a very, very interesting day. So if you're trading to the downside, you should be fine for right now. My charge point trade is really paying dividends, but my upside trade on ADM and SPY are costing me. So I'm just going to let those run for a little bit longer and see what happens for the rest of the day.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Okay, all right, Princess, nice seeing you again, talking to you this morning, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.